reference to where the investment is, where the long-range strategy is.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other point you made was on automation. So typically, how does that work? Do you guys make the investment? I think you said you kind of work with Dometic to organize your factories, or is it ever the case that the landlord will do the automation, the investment?
No, as a general rule, the 3PL would make that investment. And then what you do is you take that investment cost and you blend that into your overall cost that you deploy when you go to market to a company. Now, there might be a higher upfront cost, but over time, you should be able to, on a long-term agreement, you should be able to show a company certain cost reductions that they may not have been able to see before.
Okay. And what's the typical kind of return that you make on the investment?
It's usually 15 to 20% return.
On the capex that you do into the factory?
Yeah. Okay. Especially when you have automation. Now, when you have a manual scenario, it's not that same level. When you have automation, you can easily get to that scale.
Okay. And then this is a pretty basic question, but if you go through, I think you mentioned TMS, and it kind of just struck, what I wanted to kind of talk about quite a bit on the call. So you mentioned LTL, FTL, intermodal, ASC. Can you maybe just give, I know this is pretty basic for you, but can you maybe just give a simple kind of framework about how companies think about each choice and also the respective margins as well?
So, can you give me clarity on when you say each choice? Clarify that a little more.
Well, I guess, maybe if you give the advantages, disadvantages of, LTL versus FTL, why you would ever choose, what's the advantage of intermodal versus just using trucking, ASC, and also, I guess, which one's the more expensive, the cheaper, and more commoditized on the out of all of those choices, yeah.
Okay, so let me start with the first one. So, when you enter into it, typically for us, when you enter into a strategy with a client, they have the standard paradigm of inventory. You have SLAs that are predetermined and pre-committed. Right? You know what SLAs. So those SLAs or service commitments that you have with your client are baked into your agreement. Ultimately, when I then build my strategy for how I do my transportation management, then those SLAs are committed, and I build it out from that standpoint. What happens is, we all live in a non-static environment. There are demand changes, there are customer influences, there are winning business, losing business. Every company has an influence. And where TMS comes into play is that if I started off with a TL scenario where I'm moving all truckload merchandise out of the DC, let's say I have 10 truckloads a day that go out, and that's been the strategy. Well, what we don't tend to see is the change. Somebody up front in the organization makes a change, or something occurs with a client, and they don't necessarily talk to each other or see the impact of that shift downstream. Then what can happen is instead of having 10 truckloads go out through the door, I now have maybe only 8, and then 2 of those, 3 of those truckloads only half full, or maybe they're 20% full. Well, if no one's looking at that from a strategy standpoint or a supply chain executive perspective, then what happens is you can still be moving those goods in those scenarios over the course of another year. But guess what? You're paying empty space, and change doesn't occur. So where TMS comes into play, that's a rudimentary example. Where TMS comes into play is that I can look at lane by lane and understand, am I optimizing the cost of that lane? Am I optimizing the movement of those goods from a timing standpoint? I can do whatever scenarios on my top lane and say, okay, I was going truckload before, but because now an SLA change or something is different, I can now move to a LTL environment and still get the same SLA but on lower cost.